By golly, there we go. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I am ready to go. I'm ready to get 2024 in the rearview mirror and keep it there for a while.
I-
And just keep looking forward into 25.
and it looks like everything is terrifying except for automobiles paints that are protected with owner's pride ceramic coatings.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the safe
There
harbor
is that.
in this world.
It is a safe harbor. Yeah, you know what? I honestly, I think that's why everybody's so passionate about their vehicles because, that is a safe harbor place for them, right? So when they go out there and they're working on their vehicles in a garage or whatever, it's, we also call it therapy, Um, but I think that's also part of the passion of having a vehicle, and why it's so important to our American culture.
So I read a while back that some of the younger people who are coming up are not as interested in car ownership as much anymore. And so I through a lot of the people that I talk to on a daily basis, I don't really find that necessarily to be true. And maybe the reason is some of those guys are living at their parents' house trying to save up money or something, and maybe that would be a thing. But I can tell you, when I turned 16, there were I like my main obsession in life was to get a car and have wheels and be able to be mobile, and it's never turned off for me. Was when you were early in life, was getting a car a really big deal to you?
Oh, it was the biggest. It was freedom on wheels. That was the big thing. It was just freedom on wheels. I think too, though, when you look at, like this generation of car ownership that's coming up, you have more mass transit now in most areas than you did in others. I think that has something to do with it. I also think it's the affordability thing you know, the cost of vehicles. And again, if it's difficult for them to go ahead and purchase a home, their first home, much later in life than most of us have, then we might as well expect the same idea, the same thought process to go with the car industry too, because it's the second biggest purchase they'll make. And I think maybe to them it's almost somewhat unattainable, you know? But I'm not really picking that up. I still see a lot of people who are young and in all different generations who are still excited about vehicles. I really do. I don't see a very big lull in that passion per se. Um, but I think the more and the easier you make it for people to go ahead and maintain and keep their vehicles, I think that also keeps them excited and passionate through it too. Because sometimes that's the other thing, the time, the money, or the work, the effort, you know, those kind of things play in it too.
Yeah, and there are two different groupings of human beings out there. There's some people who really don't care about their car or the appearance. It's just simply a utility to get them from point A to point B. Um,
Hmm.
and I always find it funny that a lot of the people that are those people, they go out and they buy a black car, which is probably the absolute worst thing that they could do. But a lot of those people do get a black car, oddly enough. What do you think it is that
Well,
kind of separates these people? Like, some people really do care and they're passionate about their car and they're proud of it. And then there's that group of people who just don't care. What do you think separates those two people?
I think the black car buyer, like what you're talking about, I think that has to do with the fact that you have so many black cars in movies. We just kind of do, right? I mean, when you have a black car, you're kind of like, oh, that's bad. It just catches your eye. And I think it's part of what we see day in and day out subconsciously. The other part of people, some people not really caring compared to the others, man, I think that's really just kind of more of a personal choice. Some people like brown gravy, some people like white gravy. I don't know why, but
Mm. Well,
I,
so
you know.
I saw you did a short video a few days ago, and it was talking about ceramic coating. Like, what is ceramic
Mhm,
coating? And it just always kind of makes me laugh a little bit inside that as what we do for a living, it's so easy for us to try to look past the blatantly obvious things that are the most important answers that we can give, which is just that. And another one is like, is a ceramic coating right for you? So some people I would tell them it really is not right for them. So if you're that person who really does not care about the appearance of your car, putting this on your car is not going to be like a magic bullet that's going to just make it protected all the time. You still have to do that maintenance. Um, but
Mhm.
for the people there's a large swath of people out there that do care and that do want that car to look good when they want to sell it in a few years. And using a ceramic coating like owner's pride ceramic coating is going to help them achieve that goal so much better.
Oh, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, and the people who maybe they're not, so involved, I mean, some of those are ones, "I'm leasing for 3 years, it's a lease, I don't care," you know? There's also that. I think too, and exactly kinda hit the nail on the head with ceramic coatings, that's to me the biggest benefit, right? Is the fact, 1, I don't have to wax it again. 2, it's easier to clean. 3, the products that you can use, like, our OP lineup, it just makes maintenance really easy and efficient and non-time consuming because you have better things to do in your life than wash a car. That's how I look at it, right? I mean, it to me, it's kind of fun, and stuff, but normally it's always just something else I need to get done or I have to get to. But what I really love about the fact is it's so easy. Kind of like, with my Jeep, I use one product on the outside and on the inside to clean it, and that's Eco Wash, right? I mean, that saves me a ton of time to be able to use a rinseless wash on the exterior. Now, if it's fully muddy or whatever, of course, you want to knock that stuff off with a pressure washer or just, your hose. Um, but being able to use the Eco Wash on it as a rinseless wash, and then to go ahead and clean up the interior using the same product, except in a 32-ounce bottle, saves a ton of time. And it's the efficiency part about it that I really love.
Yep, yep, yep. And Israel, hey, what's going on, man? Israel's on here and he said hello.
Alrighty.
And
There he
speaking of that
is. Man,
interior
myth and
cleaning,
legend.
that man finally got him a hold of some spiffy, and he's back. The world is at peace again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So okay. So we have a few new things that were 2025. Here we are. We have a few things that are going to be happening this year where we're trying to expand
Mhm.
owners' pride in a few different directions. One of them is we are actively seeking distribution partners, as we've got we still want to continue growing the authorized installer network that we have as kind of our main
Mhm.
focus of really helping those guys grow their businesses and be self-sustaining with great products and
Yep.
services. Yeah, yeah. But we're also looking for partners who want to have either brick and mortar or online sales to take our product line on as a retail play. And
Mhm.
this is really exciting for owners' pride overall, for our detailers who, with more name brand exposure, is going to relate or translate to them getting more leads coming in, and just overall protecting the world for aesthetics of cars.
Yeah, and it increases brand awareness, right? And so that's great for everybody, especially if you're an installer, or as far as a lead, a customer hearing about that certain product, OP product, and then going to them and wanting it, or having that service done. So yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to look at in 2025 and to see what we can find as far as distribution channels, and growing the brand for everyone.
Mm. So if anybody's interested in either A, becoming an authorized installer, go to our website, click on become an
Hmm.
installer. If you're interested in distribution opportunities, which, there's a bit more margin for you and a different line of support, just hit us up on the same thing and one of us will give you a call and we can work all
Yeah,
that out. Okay.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
okay. And then next week on our live, we're going to be having the first annual Owners Prides Awards. So we're going to
Hmm.
recognize some of the people in our network. And what are those categories that we have, David?
Oh, and one, of course, is, the most coatings. You know, I think that's just kind of neat to go back and look at the tally too. And it's not that, you look at that number, it tells a complete story about any of the businesses because it's very interesting. Because one may be more so on an ag side. Another one might be like with the OP shop, right? We're talking about high volume. Um, but the business plan there is different. high volume and the margin's going to be a little bit lower. But when you look at some of these numbers, sometimes you're going to see guys with lower numbers, but they got really good margins because they're working on some extensive type of vehicles and they're doing some extensive work on them, and it's just a neat thing to be able to kind of hook up with them and help expand their businesses and support them. And I think this is a way of also showing recognition to our customers and saying thank you for it. And then there's another category for the select coatings. I really, really love our OP9 Select. I just absolutely love that coating. It really is just a beast. And in our shop in Omaha, we were averaging about three a month, is what they were averaging. So they're doing quite a few because it is a higher ticket item, But we want to recognize everybody getting those products out. Also, we got a newcomer award out there too. That's kind of more of a in-house. We've been taking boats and other stuff and polls here and there and getting an idea, but that's to me is also a very interesting award too because you see him doing a lot of good things right out the gate, right? And so you want to be right there rooting for him and seeing how they grow, and how and where they take their business to. And I really look forward not only just to go ahead and give out that award, right? But to see that individual grow their businesses, and their plans and their dreams.
Yeah. I fully plan on wearing a tuxedo next week for this for this award ceremony. Huh?
Yeah, I don't have one.
Ah, yeah, yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
Oddly
Okay.
enough. Okay. And then there's, I believe, there's one more on there. One more award that we're giving out. The up and comer, the most coatings. Um,
The select was another one.
maybe not. Maybe that's a surprise. maybe maybe
That
I'm
could be
going
the
crazy.
surprise. I'll have to look back in the notes, but I thought that was it.
Okay. It's you're probably right. Right. Okay. So let's see. What else are we looking at for 20? Israel said he can wear a red dress. It better be sequenced. There better be sequence. Um,
I am not going to get that picture out of my mind when I see him.
can you imagine him doing a flying back kick with a red sequence dress
No,
on?
I don't. I don't want to imagine any more than what I have already. I'm fine where I'm at, Dan. I really am.
Ah, let's see. Oh, and some more expansion is happening. We just signed on with Puerto Rico, and they'll be running their own warranty program,
Yep.
and that's all starting up. Um, I, detail classes, PPF and tint training is, or do we have anything else
We'll
lined up
be,
for that?
yeah, right, as of right now, not yet. Honestly, we just kind of looking, it's been 2025. I think it's going to be very interesting. And the one thing that kind of throws everything up in the air, some of this is, what's it going to be like once we change presidents too? So we'll definitely give Apple amount of time as far as to plan out for training or something that we may be having. I know you and Dustin are planning on putting something together too, so we got to get that out on the calendar for everybody. Um, but no, it's there's that, but I'm more excited also for some of the products that we're looking at and in development and those that are actually at the end of development and we're just fine tuning some things. And as far as ceramics go, we could be looking at up to three different new products coming out, and everything looks really, really good. Some of the people who've been doing some field testing for us, everything's looking very good, and and what I like is just to know that we're being able to put them through some practical tests along with the tests that we normally do there with the blenders and so yeah, I mean that to me is exciting. I think the other thing is exciting again is helping people grow their businesses. I think that's the other thing that we do so well that's different compared to everybody else. That we'll be here to listen. We'll be here to give you some advice. We've got stores who have you know that have been there and done that and probably been in a similar situation that they're seeking some advice on, and have no problem sharing that. And because if they don't succeed, we don't succeed.
And one of the things for some of our guys that are in that ag side, as you mentioned, I've been waiting until it was the new year to do this, and we were past the holidays. So I'll be sending out an email for those guys. We're gonna have a kind of a little breakout group where we can meet once a month and discuss that because it's such a unique, different part of business, and we have
Hmm.
5 to 7 guys who have a pretty good part of their work comes from that. So I'm excited to participate in this just so I can learn more. My grandparents had a farm when I was a kid, but other than that, I didn't really grow up on a farm, and I certainly do not recall my grandpa ever washing, his Ford or John Deere tractor, to tell you the truth. But
And tractors didn't cost as much as they do today. You know, it's a definitely a little bit different. I think the unique thing too is helping these guys network together, so that they can get and or I should say glean from each other and what's working for them in their area and maybe what's not working, right? And even working with different implement dealerships, they're not all the same across the country. And if you are working with an implement dealership, then it's a little bit different too. And and by doing the networking, you definitely don't feel like you're the only one out there, and you're not alone. So it's going to be a really really good thing for them.
strength in numbers. Another thing, I'm not gonna call a person out here, by name, but one of the guys in our network has been struggling a little bit, and his mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I suggested that he contact the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation, which, for anybody who doesn't know what this is, it is a nonprofit organization. It's been around for 50 years, and it is a charity that is only for people in the automotive space. So if you're a mechanic or if you sell cars, it's anything to do with automotive. And so it's a charity, a trust that's set up just for them. For one thing, it's
Mhm.
aacf.org is their website, and they do take donations. If anybody out there is looking to add a charity or do, a lot of guys to give back to charities through some of the initiatives that they do. I think this is a really great entity to do that for because it does give back to us. And you got to jump through some hoops, of course, because
Mhm.
they're not just going to throw money to people. But he took care of filling out the applications and had an interview, and they ended up sending him some money, which is really, really going to help. And that's just huge. I don't think that enough people in our auto detailing world even know that it's out there, and I've seen a couple other guys go through some stuff. One of them is a big tint guy and another detailer, and they did not follow through. And they absolutely were in a situation that they would have qualified for a little bit of help, but their pride would not let them do it. I say if you're out there and you are in a situation and you need some help and tragedy hits you, um, I, and I don't want to go too long on this, but it is really, really important, and it can come through for you in a time when you're in need. The Automotive Aftermarket
Yeah.
Charitable Foundation.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great foundation. It's there for a specific cause, for a specific group of people. And that's what it's there for, you know. And that's why people donated to it so that those funds could be used to help others when they needed it. Um, but yeah, it's a great organization and it's awesome to see them being able to give the way that they do, and to really stand behind their word on that. So that's great.
No. And I did a podcast episode with their old director last year that you can find on, by searching Owner's Pride Podcast and Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation.
Mhm.
So check that out. And by golly, hope that nobody needs their help, but just know that there is
If
something
you have
there.
to.
Yep, there is something there. Okay. So, I today, as we start to jump into the topic, I kind of wanted to reflect a little bit on some of the people that we have mentored or coached over the last year, and sort of how we have helped their businesses, and just kind of share some stories. No names specific, of course, but just to let you guys know. Now, anybody that's in the Owners Pride Network, you can get mentoring from anybody on our team. And if you go to danwilliams.com and take your free assessment, you can go to Damon. You can call Damon and say, Damon, my vital need is blah, blah, blah. And that will give us a place to really focus what we talk about and do a little mentoring to help you clear those hurdles. And the reason that that's so important is, you can be just a hot mess with fires burning all around you. And if you don't try to focus in on your most basic core need and work on a solution for that, you could fix something over here or over here or over here, but if you're not fixing the main problem down here, it's still going to be crazy. And it gives
Mhm.
us, as we don't have to do as much jumping around. We know what the main problem is through the assessment, and we can help you with some actionable items to immediately start resolving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So, I we have worked with a ton of people, and I don't know if you have any specific examples that you want to throw out, but um, I will just say, with what we do with the coaching, it's similar to what just happened with that automotive aftermarket charitable foundation. Somebody came in to me and they had a problem, and I said, "Hey, here's a possible solution." And then they took that information and they followed through, and they didn't just half-ass it. They followed it through and followed up, and it paid off. That's how it's gonna work with anything that we help you with too. Damon and I are busy doing our work every day. Like, we can't come to your shop and do the work for you, but we can kind of point you in the right direction and nudge you from behind. But you have to be responsible and follow through to make anything work.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to see with OP was the fact that you're not just an invoice or just a customer, right? I mean, that's how, it's typically how you feel, right? When I got my first one-star review, I didn't have anybody there to ask or say, how do I answer back to this? Because at that point, I didn't, how I wanted to answer wasn't very appropriate. Having somebody to kind of bounce that off of a little bit would have been nice. Um, and I think, like for instance, like this morning, one of our installers, they had a customer who's upset, yada yada, didn't like the tint that they had put on, so forth and so on. And we were discussing it, and I'm like, so that was actually the tint was applied free of charge during a bundled service then? Is that how this was? He's like, well, yeah. I go, he never paid for the service. And then how long ago? Then the date was months, months, months back. I go, okay, here's how I'd approach it. Okay. And just explain here, break it down to when was it? When did this take place? Make sure you see that. They see that. Everybody understands that. You go here. You tried to remedy this and take care of a certain issue, or you did take care of an issue. Yeah, you did take an okay. On such and such a date, you did this. And then go ahead and let them know you'd really like to be able to help or, with the situation. But this wasn't a paid for service. This was included. This actually was you got it free. So there's nothing that I can do to go ahead and refund you. You know, the individual, the customer lives quite a far distance away. If you come back or you are coming back, let me know. Give me a heads up, and I'll gladly place that piece for you. It's not going to happen. Guy ain't going to show back up, but you're making the option to take care of the problem for them, right? And just walking through some of those steps just kind of helps de-escalate some things before they fired off another email to the customer and explain to them why they want to keep it in black and white, why they want to have it in email form so it's documented for these kind of things. It's the kind of stuff, honestly, as a person in their 20s and being a sole proprietor, I didn't even think of back in the day, and being able to share some of that experience. And again, I tell everybody, been in the industry for 30 years. It doesn't mean I have 30 years of answers. I've got 30 years of mistakes. And if I can help people from not making the same mistakes that I made, I will gladly do it.
Yeah, I think that probably is like the genesis, or the where it all comes from. I always think and I made the mistake early on of like thinking I could just give all this information to people for free and like really spend a ton of time with them. Um, but I thought in my heart, if I can tell them the things that hung me up on the way, but then I sorry, I sidetracked on myself. But I realized that you can't just do that if there's no buy-in from people like on a full scale basis, that it's just going to be a waste of time. That's why we do the mentoring side at Owner's Pride, where, you know, it doesn't have to be involved and take a couple hours at a time or an hour, sessions where we can have those quick check-in calls, talk about it for 10, 15, 20 minutes and, send you on your way with actionable items.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about some of the lessons that we learned over the last year and just kind of, briefly discuss some of the things that happened. So one of them, we had a detailer who was struggling with low profitability. And what we came
Mhm.
to realize was that it was actually because they hadn't really put thought into pricing out their services. There was no consideration for the product cost, the amount of hours working, all of the bills that are, um, you know, that come with running a business. And so they were
Mhm.
kind of, while they were doing work and getting work, they just weren't making any money and they weren't making it anywhere and they felt like they were drowning. So kind of what we did is we really broke everything down and tried to work on their pricing a little bit by looking at all the numbers, what it actually costs them to do business, and then readjusted from there. It's not just a matter of looking at what Johnny down the street is doing, because his circumstances may be completely different from what you have. And you have to know all
Mhm.
of these numbers to properly price your business. Just going on to detailing for money or one of these things and saying, hey, I have this job. Here's a picture of it. What should I charge? Is not really going to be the best way to go about it.
No, anything like that when you think of, just the example of pricing, right? You want to give people an idea of what you're pricing for, right? How much a square foot, or if you're doing linear, however, just so that they have an understanding of why, rather than just pulling a number out of the air. I think the other thing that isn't usually brought into equation, you were talking about profitability, the margins and everything in product, is the time part of it too. And when you look at time, simply like we had a vehicle in the shop that had to be jumped, right? So it had to be jumped in the morning and it had to be jumped in the afternoon. And when you start looking at it and breaking it down, we're talking about 10 minutes for an individual, right? So then that's 20 minutes that that individual wasn't able to do what you really wanted them to be able to do in that day. Or if you really want to get serious about it and say, well, at those 10 minutes while they were taking care of that, somebody had to take care of what they were doing, then you've actually lost 40 minutes in man hours in that one day, in an 8-hour day. Once you start breaking it down, like what you're talking about, the cost per item, right, or cost per product, um, once you start also breaking down your time and seeing where your time is going, I think that is the biggest problem when you're looking at margins is the time. And that one topic, that one thing, time, typically just kind of gets pushed off to the side. But I do think if you really focus on that with the margins at the same time, man, you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, like in restaurants, I always remember that the labor cost was one of the main things that they would try to control, be
Mhm.
cutting people, and it was so important. You're right, it can just gobble you up alive. Now, to do this, you can there are calculators that you can use where you can put in all of the variables, but honestly, here's the hack that I found for this that I'm kind of telling people to do. Go on your Chat GPT AI and literally just type the numbers in, say what they're for. It will calculate everything out for you, break it down, and just put it in a very clear, easy to understand form right in front of you. Amazing. Amazing. It was funny because Ben Kilham, he implemented Profit First last year,
Mhm.
And, he spent so much time on these darn spreadsheets that he made, these Excel spreadsheets where you could plug numbers into it, and he made one for each coding, and you could, like, manipulate them around, and, I mean, he spent hours and hours and hours, and I was on a call with him, a week or 2 ago, and I was like, "Hey, man, you know, you can just put all this information into ChatGPT now," and he was like, "No." Ugh, crazy, but super
Yeah.
convenient. Know your numbers. By golly, that is really, really, really important. Okay, so how about recurring revenue streams? A lot these detailers, a lot of them treat a customer as come in and get a ceramic coating, and that's it. It's shocking how many guys are not running an email nurture campaign, who don't do anything to try to retain that customer after they come in for a service. And this is just business 101. You spend money to try to get a customer to come in and do business with you, and you do business with them. Now it's a warm connection, and you want to keep that going and keep that going and keep that going.
Right. And so when you're looking at like those maintenance programs too, it actually is an added value for the customer. It really is. And maybe it's to the point as an added value as in time. They don't have the time for those washes. They don't have, you know what I mean? They just don't, it doesn't fit in with their schedule. Or they just don't want to be bothered with it. It's a great way to keep that touch point going, and that's why you work so hard to get your customer there, is to build that relationship, right? You want the returning customer, you want them to come back to you. You want them to know that you're an authority in your industry and what you're doing.
Yeah, love that word. Love that word. And you're right. So when I was a mobile detailer when I detailed, and my maintenance customers were my bread and butter. It's shifted a little bit in the 9 years since I sold my business to, be more focused now on the ceramic coating and PPF side. But I'll tell you, for the years that I was in business, if I did not have my maintenance customers that kept me, and I would schedule a couple of them every day. So it got me out of the house and on the road. I never had a day where I was sitting at home just stressing and worried that I didn't have any business. And
Mhm.
in the mobile scenario, whenever you would go out and do work, whether you're in a parking lot or a parking garage or somebody's neighborhood, cars would go by and see you. Plus, my van was out on the road and it was a big rolling billboard. And that just kept me going. I would always have those jobs, and then I would have, room that I could fill in a bigger polish job, a full detail, a ceramic coating, or anything like that. You guys are in a high volume shop. Do you
Mhm.
take on, like, the car washes too? Is that a service that people can have, or is it only the ones, for after you get your ceramic coating?
No, we actually do have maintenance clients. They come in on a certain day at a certain time, and that's their spot. You know, they like to come in. They have the Wi-Fi available. They get a cup of coffee. Maybe ask some questions about products, especially this time of year where it's getting bitterly cold there. How do they maintain their coating and so forth and so on, and those kind of things. So it really works out very well, and it's got to be regimented. It's got to be scheduled in there nice and tight because you want to be able to provide that service for the customer and make sure that they're having a great experience every time they show up, not just that one service, but whether it be a weekly maintenance, maybe it's and that's why we also do it too. We can do it weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, or even quarterly when it comes to maintenance, and just get that plugged in, have that customer set in there. Um, and go, and just do what you're supposed to do, make the customer happy, and they're going to come back and they're going to tell other people about how great your services are. And when you look back, man, word of mouth is the best form of advertisement you can have. It's real, it's personal, and it's believable. And especially in a digital age like we have today, having somebody that will actually personally and say really good things about your company and you to their friends and family, and that's priceless. Absolutely priceless.
You know, a another thing that we offer for our network of installers that is just in my opinion, the best maintenance maintenance thing that is going to cause recurring is our glass coating program. We have a
Mhm.
glass coating that you can use it, in a couple different ways. You can use that as a, I like to call a sweetener to close a deal. Like, say somebody is interested in having their car ceramic coated, and you say, hey, if we get this thing booked now,
Mhm.
I'd like to throw in a free $99 value glass coating, and then you put that on there, and that might push them over the edge. But my favorite way
Mhm.
probably to sell this is as a recurring, you know, customer tool. And that is you put it onto their car and then have them come back and visit you every month or every other month. And you're just going to put some more of the hydrophobic layer onto their glass, because we know that if your windshield wipers are sitting outside, which they are because they're on a car and that's where cars
Mhm.
stay, and dirt lines up on the top of that windshield wiper, it starts to rain a little bit, you turn them on, it sands or abrades the surface. So the hydrophobic part can kind of wane, but we also know that our product fills in all of the little hills and valleys to make some strength, like 33% strength
Mhm.
added to your glass. So by doing this, you've got a very low cost way to create that relationship with your customer and have them keep coming back. And I tell you what, if they're coming back to see you every couple months or 90 days, um, they're probably going to create a long-term relationship with you. If there's anything else that's
Mhm.
wrong with their car, they're going to just have you fix it when they have it in there. You're probably going to get referrals from them, and they're just going to be a part of
Absolutely.
your family and feel like a part of you. So that's really my favorite way of using that product, and just a great way
Mhm.
to tie into that repeat customer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, and to help them with the services and education when it comes to your customer. I mean, once you've had a coated windshield and you've been, had the rain hit and you didn't have to use your wipers once you get about 50 miles per hour or so down the highway, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's just absolutely beautiful. But with the maintenance program too that you have a lot of, lined up with that, constantly refreshing those hydrophobics, no matter what, might be stuck on the windshield wiper or the glass itself.
Now, some of the people that we've worked with, maybe bringing in leads or having marketing that works well for them is kind of where they were falling short. And when we talk about this, we talk about digital marketing. There's a couple different, well, I mean, there's a plethora of different ways, but I want to kind of focus in on a couple that seem really good. You've got your social media marketing, which is where you're going to put a pictures or videos out. And with that kind of
Mhm.
marketing, it's really important to do something that's kind of sensational and grab people's attention at first, because they might not really be shopping for something. They might be sitting on the toilet or in a waiting room just flipping through the stuff on their phone, and you want to grab their attention to get them to go to your website. Probably the more important, although I think both of these in tandem is really important, is your Google. Having your
Mhm.
Google My Business set up, having your reviews, and posting content on that Google My Business on a daily basis. There's so many of the guys who, they think of your business as a garden, and you have to go around and pick out weeds in all the different areas of the garden, and you have to put water on everything for everything to grow. If you start focusing only over on this side right here, then all of the other stuff on this part of your garden is going to start to wilt. And it you have to feed that Google My Business, because people that are finding you through that and through Google searches are actually searching for what you're selling.
Right. But I think the hardest part is when you go onto Facebook or Instagram and you make a post there, for most people they think that that's it, right? I mean, it's on the web, it's out there, right? But like what you're saying, you got to hit those different platforms. You got to get on there in Google, just hit the update button there on your page, update your photos. It may be even used on Facebook, even maybe copy the same thing. It doesn't have to be crazy, but you're creating those backlinks. You're allowing everything to connect from Google to Facebook, so forth and so on. And again, you're strengthening your presence of your detailing business a lot higher than other guys. And so you're going to be seen more
And that
and
is
more
what it's
leads.
that is that is what it's all about. Getting more leads. Um so if who's out there, let's see. Mark. Mark is one of our retail guys. He's in New Mexico, in Allenser country, and he works at a Ford dealership.
Huh?
And I just wonder, do you, m- in this maybe specifically for Mark, if you're still watching, do you look at customer reviews and like for for all the guys out there, think about when you're shopping for something for anything. I dig into the
Oh,
reviews
yeah.
big time. Big time. In fact, if I see a whole bunch of crappy reviews, I'm just going to go to the next thing. I'm not even going to think about it too much. Super important.
I look if something looks too good to be true, if there's like, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of five-star reviews, I really want to see what did they do to make all those people so damn happy. And typically when you look at and read them, you can figure out which ones are paid for and what's not paid for. I do think, and what I like to do is when I see that, all fives, and all of a sudden you see that one. Oh, what did that person have to say? And that's when I click in and read because I also want to know did they take time to respond back to it, right? And if they did take time to respond back to it, it kind of shows me, it gives me an insight of who I'm doing business with just by them answering that review, being a one star.
Yeah. Yeah. I do the same thing. I want to see what the heck you got all these great reviews and they're all kind of the same. What was the one that was really bad? Because that's probably going to.
Yeah.
But it's funny though. People are so more apt to leave a crappy review when they get bad service than they are to leave that good one. What are some strategies that you guys have found that are really great to get those reviews?
One we personally ask, and before they leave, we ask them if it wasn't a five-star experience, then how could we have made it better? You know, we do present it to the customer. Now, most customers aren't going to want to say right away exactly what it is, but you're at least opening the door for them so that if they do find something that they didn't like or something that they felt could have been addressed better, you did leave the door open for them to give you a call, and then to make things right rather than them going to the website or going to Google and doing a one-star review, you know. Um, and those are some of the things we do. The other thing, I mean, I'll harp on it till the day I die. The checklist, that is huge for the guys in the back. That has saved us a lot. And also, our team wants to see everybody leave us a five-star review. Everybody from the front, and Sarah, to the guys that are in back doing all the work, they all want to see a five-star review. And that also means that they take pride in what they're doing. And it shows. It absolutely shows by all the 200 and some, I think they're like at 250 some reviews. Out of that, I'm guessing 240 are going to be five-star, and the rest fours, threes. There's like a few ones here and there. One is even from somebody that we never even did service for, you know, but could never get that off because of Google. But what it does, it makes us look very real there, and I like that. It doesn't seem like it's plastic. It doesn't seem like anybody paid for them. Those guys, they all worked hard and deserved each one of those five stars.
That is awesome. You've got a really good team. One of these weeks, in the next couple few weeks, I want to talk about hiring people and some of the successful things because I know that a lot of guys they struggle to get over the mental hurdle of even hiring somebody, and then when they do it, they just have dismal experiences. And I think a lot of that has to do with the approach that they take. So,
I,
well,
we always tell you always tell anybody who's leaving a job, never burn a bridge, right? You don't want to burn a bridge. You never know when you're gonna have to talk to that person and use them for a reference or something like that. And we have a new hire that was actually he was there in 2020, but he's coming back and he came back today. COVID hit. This individual was very scared. Um, Thought I was putting profit in front of people, had given me a phone call and very erratic, but he was scared, you know, young guy in his 20s. Nobody knows what the hell's going on in the pandemic. Things are closing down. It's just crazy, right? And as I'm being accused of some of these things, Um, I just told him, I go, listen, I'm gonna hang up the phone on you. I go, it's gonna be the best thing that I could ever do for you because someday you're gonna need me for a reference. And a couple years go by, he comes into the shop, and I get a full-fledged apology from him, and then he asked me if I was hiring, and I'm like, no. You know, he apologized and asked for a job. It seemed a little odd timing, but if you know him, it's not that odd. And he asked again 6 months later. No. Um, and then he asked again, and we could actually we needed the hands, and it's great to have him back on the team. But I'm glad I didn't burn that bridge because some of the thing, if I didn't look at where they were coming from and why he was so upset and why he was saying the things he was saying, um, yeah, if that would have been Damon in his 20s, oh, it'd have been terrible. Damon in his 40s was hard enough to refrain from saying things and really trying to take that big picture view, the old man view. Um, so anyway, I'm happy to have him back on. I know that everybody else who's worked there we've got several that have been there for over 5 years. They're looking forward to seeing him back. So it's a good day at the shop.
Yeah, yeah. And Dale made a point. He said that responding, back to those reviews, that responding is
Yeah.
mandatory, even for good reviews. That if you could go on there and leave
Yep.
something good, which I was only thinking about leaving them for something negative. So great points, great
And
points.
Dale brings up a great point. I mean, we always say thank you. Whenever we get a 5-star review, it's a thank you, or even if it's a 3 or 2, whatever. We're gonna say thank you and we're gonna respond back. But yeah, no, Dale's absolutely right. That's yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so for the next point, that stuff that I've really noticed in people that we've worked with in mentoring and coaching is adding systems in.
Hmm.
Systems. The more I dive into like the business side of the world over the past, well, I mean, obviously when I had a detailing business, but I wasn't really set up in doing all of the stuff that I've learned and keep learning and keep learning. I absolutely love it. But it seems the biggest buzzword and the most important thing that you can do if you want to start to grow your business and not pull all your hair out like this is put systems in place. And the more systems that you put in place, the more you can bring other entities in to handle some of the jobs and assure that they're all getting done right. And we look at something like a McDonald's, which they're obviously the best example probably. You can go to a McDonald's and get a Big Mac on anywhere in the country and it's going to be about the same sandwich. And they got high school people doing it who
Hmm.
are like really often not real mature and trained human beings yet, and they can still pull off that same sandwich. So, the more systems that you can put into place, the more freedom that you're going to have, the more you're going to be able to expand and grow and not go crazy doing it.
You wanna be able to replicate yourself is really what you're trying to do. And I think in that replication process, you find the efficiencies in there too. Um, and but it takes putting those systems like what you're saying, and it takes writing them down. It's not just training somebody, right? I mean, you've got to actually give them the material so they can learn it and digest it on their own too. Just by verbally saying something to somebody isn't just enough. You've got to give them the material that they can look back on and reflect on when you're not there.
Mm. Set people up for success. Most people probably do want to succeed. They don't wake up saying, I'm going to do a terrible job today. But if they go in and
No.
they're not given proper expectations and an outline of guideline of what to do, how that can they do it? How can they do it?
uh,
It's
No, absolutely.
unfair. So some of the things that you can do for these systems, again, you can talk to any of us. And if you take your assessment on dannwilliams.com, you will have your vital need right there. And you can say, Damon, this is my vital need. Can you offer me a little guidance? Um, but things that you can do yourself, you can use again. I'm so I think 2025 is going to be the year of AI, and like it's just going to keep rolling forward and finding more and more stuff that you can do with it. But a lot of these things, you can put the information into AI, tell it what you want to do with that information. So if it were to put your SOPs together, you can just go in there and you don't have to use proper punctuation and everything. Type out all of the steps that you have and then say, make this into an SOP. It's going to make it into that really nice and tidy SOP for you. We talked earlier about using it for um, figuring out your pricing strategies. These are systems that are right there and they're easy for you to use, that
Mhm.
it's just a matter of talking to it like it's a person, and the more information that you put in there, the more detailed it's going to be, and do what you want. If you're not using, and here's what blows me away, Damon. You and I, we're both in our
What?
50s and we use AI, and we've been using it for the past, couple of years. A lot of these guys that are detailers that I talk to are in their 20s, early 30s. And you would think that they're going to be way more technologically hip than us. Is not the case. There's a lot of guys who are not using this, and it's basically a free resource. It's almost like you're bringing on, I mean, you can put in there that you want to work out a marketing strategy, and it'll help you make all of the pieces in it. And the guys are just missing out a whole bunch of stuff if you're not using that.
Well, okay, so not making excuses for anybody either, but when you look at our installers and the average age group, right? How many of them have kids? You know, a lot of them have kids. A lot of them are married and they have all these other responsibilities and they're trying to get things done and pull in the money, you know? And I think that's a lot of it. You know, they don't have a ton of time to go ahead and spend it just on researching this kind of stuff. And that's where you and I come in, right? That's where it's like, hey, if somebody would have told us in our 20s, there's something that you can go ahead and talk into and ask for, and it will actually go ahead and put together a plan or whatever, we would have said, hey, hell yeah, we'll do it, bring it on. Um, but I think the other thing with AI that everybody's gonna be careful with is it's not necessarily 100% dead on either. This is all the information it's just gleaning and pulling from, and it's a suggested marketing plan or it's a suggested SOP. You still need to go through this personally and make sure that it fits exactly what you're looking for, and use it exactly as you described before. That is more either as an outline, but it's not necessarily the whole finished product because what you're going to get is just that first round of information. You do need to look at it, glean from it, and pick out what's really good and put in what's missing. You know, so it's definitely a great tool. Like I said, I'm not saying that anybody's lazy when they kind of know about AI or some of the other technology. It's just I get that when you're in your 20s and you get a family and you're working, 50, 80 hours a week, it's tough to catch on to all those things that are going to make you more efficient and better, because it's very difficult to see the forest through the trees.
Yeah. And you spot on what you said. That's what we're here for. Hit us up, ask us. We'll give you you will walk away with some actionable items in a 10-minute conversation when you tell us what your vital need is.
Yeah.
No. And with that AI, like again, if you use it, if you say describe what a ceramic coating is, it's going to give you generic information that it just pulls from the internet.
Mhm.
But if you take that thing and you put it onto the voice or you type in and you just start saying all of the information that you already know what a ceramic coating is, it's going to take your information and make it with your information. But do always check it before you post it, for goodness sakes. You don't want to look like you're a idiot.
Well, and I think also when you look at AI too, it does have a certain flavor when you read it. You know what I mean? There's a kind of a cadence, and you can kind of pick up on it too. That's why the more you make it personable, the more it sounds like you, the more that people will read it rather than being annoyed. There's that also. Um, again, I think it's a great tool. But that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's still a tool. It doesn't replace you or an actual person. But man, it does save a lot of time. It saves a ton of time.
No. It sure does. It does. Let's get over here. It's like we're about caught up. We got to post on our wall. It's for everyone. Okay, let's jump in. We're less than 10 minutes left, so let's jump into some of these questions that we have, and uh,
Okay.
and see what we can do with some of those before we ride out into the sunset for yet once again Thursday live. I'm really happy that we're doing this together. It's been much
I know you
enjoyable.
miss me.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's enjoyable. Okay, here we go. So these are for the from the pro detailers. Um, and this is a great one. How can I raise my prices without losing customers? Um, I I want to take a swing at this first. So I
No, go
had
ahead.
such a struggle with this when I was detailing. And it would be like for my washes. Say my wash cost $50 and I would go do a wash and they would either give me 55 or $60. So if I wanted to raise my price to $55 and they were already giving me that much money, I just could not wrap my head around saying, "Oh, I raised my price to $55." Well, that's exactly what I just handed you. So unless it went to a number
Mhm,
that was different, I just didn't know how to approach that. I would have customers who actually would tell me, they're like, "Dan, you've been taking care of our car for 8 years. You really need to raise your prices." Um, so everything in the world is becoming more expensive. I call it my old man
mhm.
syndrome when I go out and do anything now. It's just like I get, I remember when a candy bar was a nickel. Um, but people expect to pay money for stuff, and you have to, if you are looking at your numbers and you know what your profit margin that you want to make and you know how to cover all of your expenses to do business, that's how you get to those prices. Um, Regularly do raise your prices because inflation happens consistently. Sometimes it's higher than it is, sometimes it's lower, but it's a consistent thing that
Mhm.
averages out if you look at the big picture at about 3%. So putting that um, profit boost into your business every year is just you just have to do it or you start falling behind. Okay, now I'll let you go.
Well, and I think the other thing about like what you're saying, the worst part about falling behind is it becomes a noticeable jump. You know, you go from an increment to a noticeable jump. That's a little bit different. Now, if COVID taught us anything, right? It can products can jump to an astronomical rate, and so we had to make those adjustments because of the raws and everything else. Um, So when you look at this, your customers are going to right now, most people understand really because of having inflation in their own personal lives, they also understand services have to go up too. It's just the way that it works. Um, but I do think that, like you're saying and pointed out, it should be an increment. It's something that you do look at annually. You know, you really should look at it annually because if you look at it and you wait 3 to 4 years down the road, it's going to be a big jump that you need to take, and it's going to be a very noticeable jump to your customers. And I would be in the same boat. I'd be thinking I'm going to lose somebody or lose some people for customers because of that jump. Whereas it's definitely when you look at it, it's needed and it has to be done. You waited too long.
It's like every year, people who are on Social Security get a cost of living increase. Like it is just the way that the world works. Don't be afraid.
Mhm.
And if you know your numbers, you're not stabbing anybody, or you know your numbers. And if you are reviewing your numbers, then you'll see that you have to raise your prices a little bit, or your profit margin is just going to shrink down. And that's not why we've started a
Yeah,
business. Okay.
no.
Here's a great one too. When is the right time to hire my first employee? Um, and with, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Nah, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm
so
patient.
I get to these guys who are at this junction in their life, and usually the way it works is they are just at their wits end because they just keep getting busier and busier. They're trying to juggle every one of the jobs in the business, and then they want to hire somebody. Um, and yeah, you have to do it knowing, again, knowing your numbers is going to be key to knowing that you have the funds to bring somebody on. And I just want to say, I want to do an entire episode about hiring people in the coming weeks also. But when you bring somebody on, I think especially when you're bringing one person on, if they're a detail technician and you bring on the right person, don't pigeonhole them into only being the guy to wash that car. Teach them to do more stuff and hire the right people and then train them to do stuff. Just because they are the detailer, maybe you have a day when there is not the workflow for that, but maybe you can put them over on doing some social media posting or entering your warranties or doing, I mean,
Mhm.
there are so many jobs, and I see a lot of guys, they get stuck in like they have the detailer, but they have all these other fires that are burning and maybe they don't even have work. So they're like, I don't know what to do with this guy. And I'm like, my goodness, expand his horizons a little bit and give them some more responsibilities. That's going to make them happier and have more job security. And it's going to start putting you on the track to bring people in to do more of those jobs to free up your time as an entrepreneur to grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first thing, like you pointed out, know your numbers. What is it going to take? What is it going to cost for that employee? And look at that. The other thing is typically by the time they come to us, they should have been coming to us like 4 or 5 months prior to that. Because what has happened is they've kind of gotten a bad taste in the mouth of having an employee, especially their first employee, because it didn't work out, or this one didn't work out, or that one didn't work out. And a lot of times when you look back, and I can tell you, like with mine, when I look back and what I did wrong is I was already so busy that it was very difficult for me to find time to A, properly train them, more importantly, B, properly put together SOPs for them to see and read and know what my expectations were. Because verbally, it's going to go through one ear and out the other because I'm thinking about 5 or 6 other things that I should be doing rather than training this person. Right. And then I get all upset because why don't they get it? Yeah. And by the time we talk to them, they've gone past that point. The I'm done. I'm just going to be a sole proprietor and that's it. You know, um, it I think I just talked about I don't know how many different scenarios we've had with people, and
Yeah.
it comes down to that point. But you get so busy and caught up, it's very difficult to train them properly or have it set up for them to succeed. And if you do know your numbers, you are setting them up to succeed. And you're also setting yourself up to have less stress in your life too, because you're more reassured. You understand the numbers. You're not just looking at what's going on around you at that moment. You understand exactly what has been coming in for the previous months, how this typically goes. Maybe Mondays are slow, Tuesdays are hot, Thursdays, Friday, ugh. You got you got a really good idea of that, right? And you have all that data to return to and look at and base those decisions and also know where are you at right now and how is this going to work? It's going to work this way. I'm okay with it. We're going to give this a shot. We're going to bring somebody on. We're going to set them up for success. They're going to understand what I'm looking for because I have it written down, you know. Um, but it's very interesting, and it's probably one of the most difficult and nerve-wracking things is bringing on an employee for the first time.
Yeah. Is just know that you guys out there, that is one of the values again of working with owner's pride. You're not just a number. We're not just going to look at you and say, oh, he hasn't bought anything. We're look at you and say, hey, if we can help this guy grow his business, he's going to buy something, and we're going to all ships rise. So please
Yeah,
do reach out to us. Please do go to dannwilliams.com. Take your free business assessment. With that information, you absolutely can go to any one of us, Jimmy, Damon, myself, Davis, and say, hey, my vital need is this, and we will send you away with some actionable items. That is just a fact.
absolutely.
All right. So tune in next week for the owner's pride. We don't even have a name for it yet. We've just been discussing it for about the last month and a half. But it's going to be the award ceremony and it's going to be epic. It's going to be epic. Um,
We call it the OPs.
the OPs, there you go. I like it.
The
That is,
OPs. There you go. See, you got a name for it.
look at that. Like magic. Okay, so we're gonna have that for you. We've got a whole bunch. We'll be here every Thursday doing these lives. Feel free to send in your questions. Follow us on Owner's Pride Podcast. The podcast that I posted the audio version of yesterday was with Eric Webb's marketing person who is in
Mm.
Pakistan. It was a really, really great conversation that he does SEO and Google stuff. He threw some really, really great points in there, some free nuggets. So it was a pretty good
Neat.
one.
Very neat.
Check that out. And shoot, you got anything else?
No, I don't.
All right. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Let's make this year glossy, glossy, glossy. And until next time, stay glossy.